And we're live. Hey guys, welcome to another Ed's Retro Geek Out live stream. Today I want to try something a little bit different. It's just toy talk. I invited our YouTuber over. Today we have Scott the Toy Guru from Spectre Creative, the YouTube channel, on the show. So Scott, how are you feeling today? And maybe introduce yourself to the viewers.
Awesome, and absolutely, thank you so much for having me. I love getting a chance to just chat toys because it's not like I really do that with my wife and daughter. I mean, unless we're talking about like Mousetrap or Elsa dolls or something. Lifelong toy collector, been collecting toys my whole life, and was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time to stumble into the toy industry, which I've worked in for the last 20, 25 years. A good chunk of that at Mattel, where I headed up most of their DC lines, the DCU Classics line, some of the movie lines, Dark Knight, Green Lantern, Superman Returns. And then I also worked on Matty Collector, which was Mattel's sort of as their version of HasLab before HasLab for a current reference. But yeah, it was basically a pre-order of dream projects, be it giant castles or year-long subscriptions to figure lines like Masters of the Universe or Ghostbusters. And then I did some time at Jax on Big Figs and Star Wars, Jada with the nano metals. I worked for Entertainment Earth for a little while, and now I'm in beautiful Greensboro, North Carolina, and I have my own company, Spectre Creative, where I help clients who have ideas for product, not always toy product, although a lot of them are toy product, get it to market, develop content, develop a retail line, because it's, a lot more than just having an item. You actually have to, find a way to get it to retail. And that's what I specialize in. So, hey, anyone out there with an idea for a product line, toy line? I've done beauty products. I have a client that does knitting, that does Afghans. So, all products welcome. And I love unlocking the emotional connection between consumer and product. Well, let's face it, when it comes to toy collectors, we are very emotionally connected to our product.
Oh, definitely. So you pretty much manage the go-to-market segment of most of these products.
The ones I do for clients?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I help them both develop the actual product, sometimes prototype it, and yeah, find ways to get it on shelf, whether it's Target, Walmart, Amazon, or they want to sell it on their own website. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's great to work with so many creative people that are passionate about their product and helping them achieve their dreams.
Yeah, it's like Tech is saying, that's like a dream job. So that's awesome. Yeah, so thanks everybody who's in the live chat. Thanks to everybody who's listening to this interview a little bit later. Be sure to leave a like and leave a comment with any questions you may have. But like any fascination with toys usually starts when you're a kid. So were there any toy lines that were really significant to you growing up that you were like really into, Scott?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Actually, I have some of them like right here on my desk. Let's see here. So here's my Walrus Man from when I was a kid, like my actual Walrus Man. And here is this was a character from a toy line called Constructs, which was a building line with girders and bricks. I mean, I was a huge Star Wars, 80s fan, Masters of the Universe. I don't know if I have any of my vintage Masters of the Universe around here. I don't know. I have the Origin Scare Glow. I guess that's close. I think my actual. Oh, I have Manny Faces. He's over there. He's on the other side of my office, because the whole bring up Manny Faces to work, which is like September 15th or something. It's like a He-Man holiday, so I have Manny Faces permanently in my office, so he's always at work. Yeah, but it was really, there was definitely a time when I transitioned from being a toy player, as a kid, and then kind of by junior high school, that I was still buying toys. I think the Power of the Force 2 line, and then the 2000X He-Man line, other things like the World of Springfield line, like that, all that stuff that came out in sort of the mid to late 90s really turned me into a collector. And yeah, I have a lot of toys. Too many according to my wife. Can never have too many toys.
Yeah, definitely. Like, was there like one toy line in particular that you were like obsessed with? Like mine was like being a 90s kid, it was definitely Turtles, like that dominated uh my collecting as a kid. Was there like one real line, or did you go from like Christmas year to Christmas year, like then it was Star Wars, then it was GI Joe, then it was this thing, or were you like really focused on one particular toy
I
line?
mean, Constructs really was the one that kind of like brought a lot of it together, because I used to use Constructs to build things for my He-Man and Star Wars figures. And I mean, I dabbled in Transformers. GI Joe was pretty much one of the only '80s lines that I wasn't super into. My best friend was, and he had like a ton of them. But yeah, I mean, the Star Wars, He-Man, and Constructs. That was like basically the triangle of my childhood of playing with toys.
Okay, awesome. And as you were saying, like the late 90s kind of threw open that whole thing of adult collecting. Toys were getting more, maybe not more articulate, but like definitely a lot more time and effort was put into some of those lines. Um, uh, uh, did it really catch you as this is something that's being made for me, or was it still like, no, it's for kids, but I'm into it?
Um, I mean, it's interesting, like looking at like when did adult toy collecting start? I mean, and obviously, there have been people collecting, tin soldiers for decades. But I think you could really point to things like Todd McFarlane's first Spawn line as really breakthrough as far as something that was aged up the action figure, I guess. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, well, I think that the real the real aha moment for me was when I must have been in college at this point, and actually going McFarlane too, ironically. I was a film major in college, and lot of history of film classes, a lot of that. So I was very familiar with like the silent era and how film started, blah blah blah. McFarlane did action figures from a German expressionist movie called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Kalahari, yeah.
With a C, Caligari.
Yeah.
It was about a sort of a mad doctor, like carny guy, who keeps a somnambulist, a sleepwalker, in a cabinet. And I think he releases the sleepwalker, the somnambulist, at night. I mean, honestly, it's been years since I saw the movie. But McFarlane did figures of Dr. Caligari and the Sleepwalker. And when I saw those at Toys R Us, and I remember I was like, are you kidding? Like, what the what? Like, these exist?
That's definitely
like,
not for kids.
Yeah.
No,
And then
it's a silent black and white movie, like from
yeah,
the German
expressionist
expressionist movement.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and they did. I want to say, did he do Metropolis? Because someone did it. There's a Maria figure, which actually I have on my shelf. But yeah, that to me that was like a major turning point. And I remember, in the '80s, hi Ireland. Someone's saying I'm looking at the comments.
Oh yeah.
I remember like Tower Records being a really great place to toy hunt, because unlike Target or Toys R Us, they like they really were like pushing the adult collector market. And they had such a wide variety. You could, and yeah, it was a great time. Like that was a real, that was really when, they started. And I mean, now fast forward to now, and you got things like HasLab, making stuff that's only for adults. I mean, a kid can obviously buy, a Rancor or a Cookie Monster, to name the two that didn't go through.
Oh yeah.
but they're not going to. I mean, that's product directly. Well, Matty Collector. Everything. I mean, you had to be over 18 to buy a Matty Collector. So technically, it was.
Do you think that's also when like price points started to change up with the McFarlane stuff?
A little bit. I mean, McFarlane did price up their figures slightly, but you obviously got I mean, if you think back to that first wave of McFarlane
pretty
toys,
huge as well compared
They were
to?
they were bigger than, like comparatively, like the Toy Biz X-Men figures, not Marvel Legends, but like that the line that came out before Marvel Legends for the animated series. And they had a lot more detail than most people. That was really the thing, was put in the Horsemen when they came in at like wave 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Really, that's the Four Horsemen, the design studio that did Masters of the Universe Classics and DCU Classics. So, obviously, they were charging a bit more, but it wasn't like what it is today. I mean, today you're really spending a lot, but that's because of labor and material and it was the war in Iraq that really did it. That shot petroleum prices up.
All right.
And not the I guess not the first one, the second one, the one. When we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, that 9/11, after that one. So yeah, I mean, that was really what caused. After that, that's when toys. I mean, I remember Marvel Legends used to be like $7.99, and you got a giant leg of Galactus, and now they're $22.99, and some of them don't even come with Build-A-Figures. I mean, like I just bought this Human Torch figure, and I'd spent $22.99 on him and no Build-A-Figure. So there you go. There's inflation for you.
Yeah. I wrote down a couple questions. But as you were saying, like I pretty much kept, buying toys. Was that just newer toys, or did you also check out like flea markets or like discount bins to finish off collections?
Great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. Yeah, no, it was really all new stuff. I definitely have a desire to complete my vintage Star Wars line now that I'm an adult. And it's kind of like it's like a thing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to get to that one day. I really like treasuring the fact that I still have so many of my actual figures that he not exactly in the greatest condition, but I love that, because he was played with. There's a real big difference between the toy you had as a kid and rebuying or buying, figures from a line you had as a kid. I think there's a real big emotional difference there. And so I was really, I'm not that into secondhand toys, for the most part. I've bought many, but I find I like being the original owner.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
like to me, that's like I guess I started collecting toys when it was already a bit more expensive. So like no way I was going to get new stuff on card or trying to be like the first one that owned it. So to me, like finding, secondhand stuff is like finding gold, honestly. Definitely for like lines that came out in the 70s or 80s, because I just wasn't around then. But it's cool to see.
I totally respect that. I don't. Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, people were already, into like collecting G.I. Joe and being like, oh, it's gonna get really expensive, or like it's worth money. When I was getting older, so I actually kind of got out of it, like collecting toys. It was something I would like check eBay to see like what TMNT was doing like on the secondary market, but it wasn't until I got like a job and had like a disposable income I could start going out to flea markets and paying like $60 each weekend and coming back home with a bag of toys or games.
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a store in town called McKay's Books. It's not a flea market, but they have it's used books, and they do sell a lot of used toys. And I've picked up quite a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, and I totally get that aspect of collecting. I think for me, yeah, it's just like it's like having it. Like I'd feel weird buying someone else's Walrus Man for some reason. It's like I want mine because I put energy and play into it, and I don't know. To me, there's just something about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I can totally get that. Um, um, so we kind of already spoken about the adult collector trend, which is something that will come up a bit later. But so you said you were like a film major in college or in high school. I'm not sure how that works. College and
Yeah,
or university.
I majored in film and communication at University of California, Santa Barbara.
Okay. And then
Right.
like how did you like roll into getting a job in the toy industry?
Not directly.
Okay.
So, I was born in Connecticut, and then we moved to California when I was in third grade. And I lived in Orange County, which is about an hour, hour and a half south of Los Angeles. And for reference point, if people know where LA is. And every time we would drive up to Los Angeles for, see friends or family or whatever, on the side of the freeway in a town called Hawthorne, which is a little more than halfway, was the Mattel headquarters at the time. And it was a giant brick building, and it had the big Mattel red, gear facing against the freeway. So it's like, here I am, 10 years old or whatever, and you're driving. I was like, oh my gosh, like one of the biggest toy companies is like right here. That is so cool. So I definitely wanted to get into toys. And right when I graduated, I tried hitting up all of my networking, and, I actually did get a informational meeting with someone at Mattel through my networking. And I said I wanted to be a toy maker. And he basically told me that I needed to get a degree in engineering to do that. And I was like, oh, great. Well, that's not happening. Like, so much for that dream. And actually, in college, back to being a film major, my senior thesis, my paper I wrote was on using action figures as a marketing tool for movies, which, I mean, they are. And I remember my professor I got a C on the paper. And the reason is they said it was too opinionated. And years later, I never did this, but I wanted to send in my business card when I was a director at Mattel and just say, it's not an opinion when you're right. So either way, so as a film major, my emphasis was screenwriting. And I basically wanted to become a writer and write TV commercials in marketing and advertising. And breaking into advertising isn't any easier than it is in the toy industry. I managed to do that through, again, some connections, and got a job at an ad agency that was a medical ad agency. And I was on a glaucoma account. I could tell you more about glaucoma than you ever wanted to know.
Okay.
Kind of a medical glaucoma from 4 years of that. So after 4 years, I had a professional portfolio with, actual ads and material I'd written. And I didn't really ever connect the fact that the toy industry and the medical marketing industry are very related in the sense that they both have to navigate all of like the fine print and the safety warnings and, small parts and licensor logos. So Mattel saw when I was finally able to sort of apply again at Mattel, but this time with an actual, 4 years of work experience, they saw my work and my resume. I was like, oh, this is great, because we love hiring medical writers because they understand all of the fine print. So what I got hired to do at Mattel, my first job, was a writer in Hot Wheels. And the cool thing was I got to name all the cars and a lot of the sets, but I also, the really big thing was, managing all of the fine print and the legal and the small parts and the safety warnings and the lion warnings and all that. If you look at the bottom of any toy box, you'll see that package. And so that's basically how I got in, was having 4 years of experience in a medical marketing position, and Mattel saying, oh yeah, like that's actually a skill set we look for, is writers who can navigate legal marks. So there you go.
Yeah, it's not with, like the geekery of, I've been collecting all my life. This is what I want to do. So it seems like a really big detour, but
yeah, exactly. It was
the
much more
skill set was there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, no, awesome. So you kind of like worked up from that point on. So you were doing the naming of the cars and everything. Did you? I don't know if you crossed paths with Joe Galliani during that time, or
name does not sound familiar. But did he work in Hot Wheels?
No, I don't think so. I think he worked on Barbie and stuff like that, but it might be a little bit earlier in the 90s that he was there.
I didn't start Mattel until 2005, so if that
Okay.
was a reference. But it's funny, but like the whole building is actually almost like a junior high dance where like the girls
Oh,
group is
really?
on the side and the boys like, and literally there's a line down the middle that's actually conference rooms. But it's like it's so like girls over there, boys are over here. I mean, there are girls that work in the boys group and boys that work in the girls group, but it's very funny how like divided it is physically.
Yeah.
But how
He
I
like co-created the Street Sharks license.
oh
So
okay, that would have been like
so
way
he
before.
co-wrote that, and but he stayed on Mattel because he was like helping out with writing scripts for Street Sharks and the Barbies and doing like the presentations on Toy Fair. That was like his thing. But I guess like he was already out doing other stuff when you came in, maybe. Um, but yeah, so you started doing that, but like you were saying before, like I want to make toys. I want to be like creative in that. What were like the next steps you got offered, and how did you end up doing what you obviously love to do?
I mean, it wasn't as direct as me saying, yeah, like, you know, I want to make action figures. It was, well, actually kind of was. So there was about 2 years into my time in the Hot Wheels packaging group, there was a meeting where Tim Kilpin, who was the general manager, and some fans may know him because he worked on the vintage He-Man line, not only as a brand manager, but he wrote some of the mini comics. Like he's got credit in some of them as the writer. And so he was doing meetings with sort of all, like, sort of in the trench meetings with all of the, employees in the different groups, everything from Barbie to Hot Wheels to Batman, to Uno. And it was basically, he wanted to find out directly from, the people, the day-to-day people, not just, the directors under his, he reported to him, but like, what were the issues of the day? What were people having trouble with? What did they need more support from management on? And so when it came time to our groups meeting with him, I'm in Hot Wheels packaging. So most of the people on my team, there's like maybe 20 people on my team. They're saying things like, "Oh, we're having problems, getting this kind of cardboard or this cardstock or this blister type, or like the glue isn't working between the blister and the we need a new factory doing it." And so at the end of the meeting, I raised my hand and basically said, "Why doesn't Mattel make action figures aimed at the adult collector market?" And Tim looks at me, he's like, "I'm sorry, that is so not why I'm here. Like, what? I'm here to find out about your Hot Wheels packaging needs. But that sounds interesting. Like, why don't you call my secretary and put a meeting on the book?" Took 4 months, but I finally got a meeting with him, and I brought in an egg crate full of sort of adult collector stuff at the time. Some NECA action figures, some McFarlane stuff, some Indiana Jones figures I'd bought from Disneyland, and Marvel Legends. I basically, dumped them out on his desk and, said, look, I'm spending, $100, $200 a month on action figures, but none of that is going to my own company. There's obviously a market out there for adult collector figures. And I feel like, we had brands like He-Man, Batman. They were looking at getting the Indiana Jones license at the time. This was right before the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I'm sure they're glad they passed on that now, but that's a whole other story. So basically, like, he liked what I was saying. He agreed that there was
it sounds like a great pitch. Like, I'm spending $200 on these toys, and none of them are going to this company. So
yeah, that's he definitely saw a little of himself in me because he started as a writer and then became a marketing manager on He-Man. And ironically, that's exactly the career path I took. So basically, he was extremely supportive. They moved me over from Hot Wheels to what's called the Boys Action Play Group, which at the time was basically working on like Naruto and the Batman only line because they didn't have the rest of the license. I don't even remember. Like, there was some weird, like, One Piece. It wasn't really even what it is today, or was even 5-10 years ago. So basically, I came in and I was kind of given like 90 days to put together a business proposal and they set me up at a desk literally in the back corner of the building. It was like a fold-out table with an old computer that barely worked. And I'm scared to death because if I can't pull this off, I'm going back to Hot Wheels, or maybe even not even going back to Hot Wheels. It may not be a job for me because they've hired a temp already to replace me.
Okay.
But luckily, I had help from other marketing people, Jim Murphy, Johnny O'Neill, and we put together the proposal for what became Matty Collector, and we got the green light to do it. The nice other serendipitous thing, because Matty Collector at the beginning and throughout the entire life of it was never a large enough brand to justify a brand manager, because a brand manager at Mattel has to manage a certain amount of revenue for, let's just say, $50,000. I'm just making that up. But whatever that number is. And Matty Collector was way, way less than that. So they couldn't justify keeping me in the group just to run Matty Collector. But as I said, serendipitously, Mattel at that time got the master license to DC, not just Superman and Batman. And I was basically the only one in the marketing group that knew anything about DC comic characters beyond Batman and Superman, because I am a comic book geek. So they're like, oh, great. Well, we'll have Scott run the line. Like, he can report to Jim Murphy, who can do more of the high end market, the high level stuff. But Scott, we need someone to run this brand who understands, the brand and the collector. And so because of that, I was able to actually get a job in marketing, which was running the DCU Classics line. Matty Collector was just always sort of something I did on top of that. It took until I
was Matty Collector, because I associate it with Master of the Universe, but did it do other things than that, or was it from the start like we're gonna pick this license because it has such a great history to it?
Oh, for the Motu Classics line, I'll grab my Ram Man here. I never thought we'd get beyond 6 figures. I thought it was going to be kind of like the commemorative line at Toys R Us in 1999 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I thought the backbone of Matty Collector was going to be Justice League figures and DCU figures, and we would do more obscure characters than we could do at retail. But it turned out Motu Classics outsold everything and became, it's like most people associate Matty Collector with Motu Classics. That was never the intention. That's what fans supported. And it was great because we completed the vintage line and we did, a castle and a dragon and all sorts of cool things.
Did you did you have other things already lined up to do, but did Master of the Universe sort of take over in that way?
Probably more so that I just thought the Justice League stuff would sell better and would be evergreen. Like we could just produce Justice League figures forever, because the fans online were very vocal. They were very inexpensive to produce in the sense that, like Motu Classics, they shared the same body. So you could basically tool a head, maybe a cape, maybe an arm here and there, and get a new character out of it. So actually, I've got a bunch of Justice League figures. Here's Question, right? Although he wasn't a Matty figure. And here's, here's Moana Beast. So it's they weren't too expensive, too hard to make. Question here was used Two-Face's body from the Batman line, and Moana Beast just uses the standard body with a new head and a new loincloth, and that's it. I just thought we would sell a lot more of those, and we didn't. But the Motu line did sell, and that's basically it.
Okay. No. Yeah, a friend of mine, we did a video over there, and he had the complete run apart from Snake Mountain, which was incoming, and just seeing this whole wall filled with the Motu classics, that was insane, because it took 10 years to complete that run, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm fixing Moana Beast as probably shouldn't be doing that. Everything in its place, right? Motu Classics, it's one of the things I'm most proud of. Really the whole line. It's not one figure. But yeah, everything, and it was an amazing thing to work on. It's something that could, I don't think, ever be done again. Not both in terms of how, the cost of figures now, as well as it came out. I don't want to use the term magic time, but it came out when Motu was considered a dead brand because the 2000X line had failed at retail, if you will. I mean, it was big with us collectors. We liked it. But it was looked at as a brand that had failed at retail internally, and no retailer wanted to touch a He-Man line at the time. So nobody kind of cared what we did with it, in a way. I mean, not literally, but it's like people are like, okay, yeah, you want to sell He-Man toys? Like, the company's not doing anything with it because the brand just failed at retail. So knock yourself out. Like, yeah, great. So it's like there wasn't that much oversight versus to even now today with multiple Motu lines at retail from Mattel. Yeah. I think that there's so many eyes on the brand that you could never do something like that. Like, you want to make Natasha? You want to make Strobo? What? Like who? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because like I remember like the guys that were really into it, they were like Man at Arms, or like some of the first ones. Those runs were way smaller than the later figures, which are like lesser known figures. So there's kind of like this weird balance in like, no, that's actually like the expensive one because the run wasn't as big as the later years.
And that's because it was in later years, it was tied to subscription. So we built to order, basically. In the beginning, we were just making sort of the minimum that the factory would let us, because we didn't know if these were going to sell. I mean, like, we didn't want, this was an experiment. It could have totally bombed. But it didn't. And now we all have Ram Man.
That's awesome. So I mean, like, definitely like Matty Collector. To me, it's like adult collectibles, and it's one of the big lines, like longevity wise. It just kept going, like where NECA would switch IPs around every once in a while and then start doing redoing lines. This just kept going because you were like telling the whole story and adding into New Adventures stuff and She-Ra stuff, and like where were you going to put like limits on the universe for this one?
I mean, the whole idea, and even the idea of like the bios and the mini comics and the story that me wrote to, it was all just to justify doing the greatest number of figures. It wasn't done to like, create a great story like, War and Peace or something like that. It was meant to just be like, oh, let's find a way to justify doing Vicor and justify doing New Adventures He-Man and and have them all be in the same universe together. It was because the fans supported it. It was because they subscribed every year, even when prices went up. It was literally just like what's going on with HasLab. Like, when fans support something, it goes forward. When they don't, it doesn't. I think it helped that, people working on it, like the Four Horsemen, myself, Bill Beneke, Terry Higuchi, were very passionate people about toys. That doesn't happen.
It seems like they were pushing the envelope, like sculpt-wise, or it was already recognized, like, if these guys do it, it's going to be really good.
I mean, the Four Horsemen are invaluable. I mean, they were absolutely the creative, vision behind it. They're the ones who proposed it in the first place. Not as classics, but they thought it might be another retail opportunity when they brought a He-Man to Comic-Con to show us. But then, since we already had Matty Collector in the works, the original idea was actually just to continue the 2000X line. I've talked about this in a couple of videos, how we were going to do King Grayskull but using the Ice Armor He-Man from 2000X as the base. But then when we saw this Horseman prototype that they brought to Comic-Con, we're like, whoa, we should just start over and let's like do a brand new line. And that's why King Grayskull became the first figure, since he was already like in development. We just sort of switched bodies and scales.
That's awesome. Got a super chat in from Toy Connections. He's also a really good YouTube channel, so definitely go and check him out. Thanks for the donation. And Yeah, you guys don't need to super chat or anything, just so you know. But just wanted to pop him up because he does have a really good channel as well.
Yeah, I love promoting. I mean, like we're all in this together, as a toy community. And yeah, I definitely love shouting out other channels and even people who subscribe and have projects. Like actually, I think the video I have today shouts out a project from a subscriber.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's so cool talking about that. Just like I'm more into like what customizers are doing, but like when you start doing the rounds on other podcasts and stuff, you end up like sitting in the same chat with like people that are actually creating for the Ultimates or doing like different stuff, and I'm like, whoa, it's amazing. How did I end up here? Just the same like as today, like getting to talk to you. What is one of your like most favorite memories about doing the Matty Collector email line? Like what year, or like what was beyond amazing about that?
I mean, the whole thing was surreal. And actually, I felt the same way. Like you just said, I mean, I'd be in a room with the Four Horsemen. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to the Four Horsemen. But like, I spoke to them almost every day. But every time it would still feel like someone pinched me. Like, yeah, I mean, Castle Grayskull was absolutely, like a cherry on top. And I remember when we revealed that at New York Toy Fair at their press event, and just watching, like we basically had all these brands in a room, and all the high ups from Mattel were like sort of sitting in the back watching. And when they opened the door, every single person that came in, this was like the toy press, like the Pixel Dans and the Action Figure Insider, all the sites that have press passes.
He must have gone nuts over that Pixel Dance.
Well, there must have been maybe 20 brands on display, right? Everything from Barbie to Hot Wheels to WWE, DC, all along the wall. Every single person from the press who came in all just made a beeline for Castle Grayskull. And like that was a great moment because there was a lot of pushback from upper management to even making that. And that was like a real, fight, for lack of a better word. So it was great to see that, and for upper management to see all these excited fans excited about this castle that they helped make happen by pre-ordering it. And, it felt really good.
How did it come to an end, the Master of the Universe Matty Collector line?
Well, basically, I mean, like I said, earlier in the interview about how my job was, like on the books, was running the DCU Classics line. Like if you went to Mattel and like look, Scott Neitlich up in the computer, it would say, brand manager DC properties or something like that. Matty Collector, literally, because it wasn't big enough to justify a head count, like, hiring a brand manager to run it, I was doing it more or less in my spare time. I mean, actually quite literally, because I would go home at night and basically work on it, and on the weekends, much to my wife's chagrin. And so when I left Mattel, I got hired by Jax. My previous director, John Blaney, called me up and was like, hey, like I'm a VP at Jax, as you know. He left a few years before I did. And, we have some new lines we're working on. We think you'd be really great managing them. It was a chance for a promotion and a raise and et cetera, and to work on Star Wars, which was great. So that's why I left Mattel. A lot of people ask me that because it was a dream job. It's like, why would you leave your dream job? You're making He-Man figures. So basically, more or less, when I left, they didn't hire anyone to replace me. And you could say that I kind of left them with a full tank of gas because 2015 was already designed and in the process, and we were just about to start working on 2016. In fact, we had a B sheet. I've done a video on this, and I showed the B sheet where we had the whole line, the whole year planned out. And so, yeah, I mean, more or less, when I left, they didn't hire. I mean, like if a Hot Wheels or Barbie or DC brand manager leaves, it triggers HR, like with any Fortune 500 company, to immediately hire a replacement. So when I left, they hired a replacement. Actually, at the time, I was working on Hot Wheels Star Wars, so they would have hired a replacement for that. But because Matty Collector was never actually I don't want to say it wasn't a real job, because I mean there were designers and packaging people who worked on it, but there wasn't a marketing job for Matty Collector. So when I left, there was no, but
like the FTEs weren't there in the payroll for it, you know.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so the people like working on it who gave like the Comic-Con presentation, I think for 2015, Mark Morse was there, and I think he went on to work on Super 7. And I think a lot of people thought that he was the new brand manager, but he was the director of all boys, meaning like he oversaw WWE and DC and, you know, whatever else, you know, Avatar, I don't know, whatever else they were working on at the time. So, you know, he came out on stage and, you know, gave a presentation to the fans about the future of Matty Collector. But it's basically like like a VP or a director coming out, but there was nobody under him running it. So they kind of pushed it over to Mega Bloks, because they were doing collector stuff with like Halo and that kind of thing. So they're like, oh, you know, Mega Bloks can handle it. They know the collector market. And then there was a guy at Mega Bloks, I want to say maybe Adam or God, I can't even remember, because he was on it for like a month. And then he got laid off in one of the many, many giant mass layoffs Mattel has every year. And basically then when he wasn't working on it anymore, nobody was. And it just petered out. And then Super 7 came along and said, hey, we'll do this. And Mattel's like, great, here you go. You can pay us a royalty and we're done. So that's basically what happened. Until Mattel decided to take the brand back because they wanted to do something with it.
I do like the Super 7 stuff that happened, like with the Power of Grayskull, like having the actual vintage styled.
Oh, they were
there.
Super 7 was doing such amazing, awesome stuff. I was so excited to see all the different versions of the figures they were doing, and they were putting so much love into it. I mean, not just them doing classics, but yeah, the retro figures and the 3 and 3/4 inch figures. But yeah, then Mattel decided they wanted the license back for the current projects they're doing, probably because when the brand is going to go to Universal in 2023, and they're probably saying, oh, we have this great brand for the next 3-4 years, let's do something with it instead of. So yeah, basically they took the brand back, and Super 7 lost the license, and now Mattel is. But there's more He-Man brand toys at retail than there's ever been. I mean, you got Origins, Masterverse, the CGI show, you got Imagine X, you got Fisher Price, you got Uno, you got Mega Bloks. I mean, it's out of control, and is it for kids? Is it for adults? That's going to be the big question. I think next year we're going to kind of find out, because there's not enough adult collectors to support it at retail. 2000X proved this. And I've said many, many times on the Spectre Creative channel, free plug, that the future of the brand is 100% dependent on kids falling in love with the new content and the new toys.
Yeah.
If kids like it and love Origins and love the Revelation or the CGI show, bam, awesome. We've got a huge future. If they don't, and it's just a collector line, they better move the damn thing online, or it's going to go away, because retail, if sales aren't what to retail's expectations, and this is for any toy line, retail says no thank you, and they put something else in its place. So we need kids to get into the brand. That's the future.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like the weird struggle everything is going through with same thing to me. It seems like with movies, like even with the new Ghostbusters, like, is it fan servicing or is it trying to create new fans? It's such a weird thing. Like, they honestly don't know what to do. It's with like Thundercats Roar. It's the same thing. They can't seem to put like a firm grasp on what is the target audience, because you can't combine both. It's not going to work.
And a lot of that is because not just toy companies, but studios are in some ways kind of terrified to try something new because it could fail. Versus do, He-Man 4.0 and Star Wars 10.0, Lord of the Rings 9, again. it's like they know these things work, but like you said, is it a kid thing? Is it a collector thing? It's a weird time. Yeah, it's a really weird, and I think it's going to sort itself out in the next few years because things are either going to work or they're not. And if they don't, toy companies and studios are going to have to figure out a new plan. And maybe that means creating new things, which would be awesome. Like in the 80s, I mean, we got so much. Gem, He-Man, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. Well, that was 90s, but Transformers. It was such a golden age of new IP for kids. And
maybe a little bit too many IPs, but then again, it's just the way it works now. It's just the same. You know what's gonna be rebooted next couple years, like already, and there's not room for anything new. It's always going to be a reboot with like, this thing is happening now, so let's combine it, which is kind of unfortunate. But then again, who wants to take the risk on it? Because nostalgia sells. It sells to a particular target group that has money for it. But it like the ratio of actually hitting that nostalgia right is so tiny. So it's a weird thing. Thanks so much, Man Child. I think you'll learn a lot more from Scott's channel than from mine, but thanks for the awesome comment. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, working at Mattel, what was like the biggest wait what now moment versus of you aspiring to be in the industry versus you actually being in the industry? Like, I thought it was going to work this way, but it's actually not like that. That might be a difficult question to.
Oh, like what was kind of like the whoa, this is like how it really is kind of thing?
Yeah, like it's not what I expected, or like, wait, is this? I was watching like your video on the terms that are actually used in the board meetings instead of like what collectors use, like with the play patterns and everything. But were there maybe like some sort of thought process that was put into creating toys that you were like, wait, is this how you're doing it? That's kind of like my question.
No, I get it. And before I answer that, actually, one closing thought from our last topic is we were just talking about rehashing things. Like, there's another Matrix movie in the theaters right now. Like, if anything tells you they won't try new things, there you go. Okay, I was off topic. So
it's okay.
The biggest the aha moment was really basically realizing how I would say 95% of the people in the toy industry just look at the stuff as, like there's no difference between producing a scissor and producing a Human Torch. It's
okay, so it's just product that needs to gets pushed and turned into money. Like,
yep, exactly. And how can we
this
make
value needs to become this value, nothing more.
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not just, and that's not just with the toy industry. I mean, any manufacturing, like if you work for a tire company, right? Do you think like all the people there are like really passionate about like I mean, there are probably some. I mean, you can be passionate about tires, but what skews it is people like you and me and all the people in the comment section, Roland and McButtergolem and Dom G and Matt Drake and, all of you guys. I'm looking at the comments here. Sorry if I didn't call anyone else out by name. Those are just the ones that happen to be up. We have such an emotional connection to this stuff. Like going to flea markets, collecting them all, having a complete collection, et cetera, that the idea that someone working on it doesn't feel the same way as us, is kind of very world shattering. And, actually an exact aha moment. I remember when I first came to Mattel and I was just visiting marketing because I wanted to like see where the boys action figure marketing group was. This was when I was in Hot Wheels, and I was able to find Eddie Hayden, who was the brand manager for Justice League. And he like everyone at Mattel and all people had a very tiny cubicle. And I was like, whoa, like you run this line that I like wake up at, 7:00 in the morning to get to Target to try to find Hawk Girl. And it's all done from this tiny little desk with like all this paperwork. Like there's not toys everywhere. And I remember like that visual really stuck with me. And that's really what it's like. I mean, there are people in the toy industry, your Bobby Vallas, your David Vonners, your Bill Beneke's, your Four Horsemen, who are extremely passionate about toys. Tim Kilpin, one of them, he's such a toy guy. And that's why he climbed his way up to being general manager. He's now president of Toy Monster, I believe. So I'm not saying there aren't people. Ray Adler, who worked on Hot Wheels, huge Hot Wheels fan. He actually got his job at Mattel because Mattel sued him to shut down his Hot Wheels fan site. And then they wound up hiring him to be the brand manager for Hot Wheels. So there are people, but I would say it's about 5%. And most people are just like, okay, what are we making? We're making scissors, or we're making, little purple men, or we're making, we're making flying jets or whatever. That was, we have such a strong love for this stuff, and to see it treated as just numbers on pieces of paper was kind of like,
but if you probably saw the Toys That Made Us documentary on
the one that gave all the credit for everything I did to Super 7. Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, maybe unaware about that, but not what I was gonna go for. But like as I was hearing like about the finish line, these were just guys at the end, Friday, at the end of the day, like in the office, drinking whiskey. I'm coming up with like, oh, Stinkor, that might be a good name for something, or Moss Man, or like. There wasn't like if you see the names, they work because it all worked. It came together like a really cool puzzle, but it doesn't seem like in some of the names a lot of thought was put into it. Yet it turned into something especially magical for us. But that seems to cut in with that 95%. We just got to make something that sells to kids,
Well, and compare like the success of He-Man to so many other lines that Mattel did in the 80s or 70s, Food Fighters or Captain Pat, that haven't really, there's fans of Food Fighters out there, but, it's like, it's not getting a new show on Netflix. Some things just work. He-Man worked for a lot of reasons, the aspirational quality, the fact that he was made of muscle, and, here in the, in the 80s, everything was about muscular heroes, Stallone, Schwarzenegger. Another great example, going back to your question, like one of those moments, I remember we were doing what's called a PP review, which is production pilot of it, like the last wave of DC superheroes before it became DCU Classics. This was the wave with Clayface in it. For anyone, it was a purple carded, and Clayface had like rubbery arms. Again, I remember this very distinctly. In the PP review, you get 5 samples of each figure, and one usually goes to marketing for photography, and then the other ones design, basically make sure that like, oh, the head's attached correctly, the paint tops are correct. That's like your chance to basically make final comments to the factory. So here I was in this meeting, and they're pulling out the PP samples from the whole wave. So 5 of each figure. There might have been 5 different figures, 7 different figures. And these are figures that weren't out yet. They weren't going to hit stores for like 6 months. And I'm sitting in this room with like unreleased DC figures, which that alone was pretty thrilling. But then I see the engineers just rip the package open, one of them pulls Clayface out and starts yanking on the arms as hard as he can to see how much pressure it's going to take to break them. And he breaks the arms. And I'm like just watching them like destroy these toys that aren't even out yet, that, if you put one of those on eBay, it'd probably be going for like $200 because it wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
But they're just treating them like, consumer products, and they're just like, okay, does it open and close correctly? Does it, whatever it's supposed to do? So they're like, literally, grabbing the figure and like yanking it and like trying to yank the head. Like, can I get the head to pop? Oh, but I did get, and then like throwing it on across the room. I was like, oh my God, stop. You're like giving me a heart attack here. But that kind of really symbolized what it was like. Consumer products, like they're just making something and it happens to look like Clayface.
Oh man. Yeah, it's weird. Oh man. Um, Tying the whole Toys That Made Us thing to like a TV show that you were on, where is like the first time I saw you or heard about you was like Toy Hunter with Jordan Hembrow. You came
Yeah.
onto that show a couple times, explained the whole thing about Wonder Bear He-Man, and then a couple years later you would start creating your own YouTube channel, which is like next thing I'd want to get into, where you also explained the whole thing about Wonder Bear He-Man with some good documentation. How did Spectre Creative YouTube channel get to be?
I mean, honestly, I started it in March of 2020, which was during the heart of like the super lockdown when like
Yeah.
everyone had to stay in their house and like nothing was open. And I was bored. And I started it both as something to do with my time and as a way. I mean, I wanted to advertise Spectre Creative as a business, to get clients, to let them know what my skill set was and what I could do for people, helping them bring product to market. So yeah, I mean, it literally just started out of a Corona boredom project, but it took off, which was awesome. And I mean, yeah, I'm like nearing almost 30,000 subscribers. I mean, that would be my goal for the end of the year if I can hit 30,000. So, hey, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Really,
Yeah, I mean, like if you have like probably if you have like any question about toys, go to Scott's channel and just scroll through the videos. You'll find like the question, and you'll find a video with a really good explanation about it. I remember like when I first saw like a couple of the videos of Spectre Creative, because I signed on pretty early, and I was like, well, I should probably just quit my channel because he's doing it. He knows everything, so it was like,
well, I think the other part of it, not just doing it out of boredom, but it was also a little bit out of frustration with the fact that most of the toy channels on YouTube were either reviewing toys, which is great, like I mean, I watch reviews all the time, especially for a figure I may not own yet, or just bitching about the industry. And a lot of that complaining about the industry was people completely uninformed of how things actually work. Or saying things that just like factually weren't true, but were emotionally driven. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I could actually explain this and legally, because I'm not giving away any proprietary information. Things like tooling are universal for all toy companies. So I realized there's kind of an unmet niche in the fact that there is no toy channel actually explaining like why things happen, how toys get tooled, why companies get certain licenses, why they ship things to retail in the way they do. Instead of people just, discussing it online and jumping to their own conclusions of why things happen, I was like, well, I can actually put out the factual information and inform people. And that sounds like that would work. And it has. And I also love when people suggest topics in the comments. I read all the comments. I try to comment back to as many as I can. But anyone who has topic ideas, I love hearing them. I'm like, all right, great. You want to know about that? I'll make a video on that. Done.
Is that your process for a video? Like it starts from a question that you want to see answered, or that some of your viewers want to get answered?
I would say about half the time. Yeah, I mean, it might come from that. Like I may see like a trend, like a lot of people asking about something. And the other half is sort of just like, I mean, yeah, I mean, it really just comes from me, like being part of the toy community, hearing what people are talking about. Like the Rancor that just failed with HasLab.
Yeah.
I saw what people were saying about it online, and I realized that a lot of them were saying things that were factually incorrect. And I was like, well, I'll put out a video just putting out the actual information. I know I don't work for Hasbro, but I know how this stuff works because, Castle Grayskull was a very similar toy in the sense it was crowdfunded. It was a large item with an upfront fee, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, no, we didn't charge for Castle Grayskull up front, which was stupid. We should have, because we got stuck with a bunch of them. But that's a YouTube video for another time. So yeah, or a lot of times, yeah, it'll be inspired by just something I see at retail, you know, or something I read about. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I should make a video about that. Yeah, there's really no one, like, you know, method to my madness. It's kind of just like whatever happens to work, especially because I do a video every day.
Yeah, it's insane, man. And you pop the pictures on later, or just do like one audio take, or is there more to it? Do you have like a script written out, or because you talk very like you talk very well, or like it's very structured every time you answer anything. So does it just come naturally?
I mean, you know, maybe, you know, it just comes naturally. You know, the other big thing I want to do with the channel was I didn't want to do a script because I wanted to treat the channel much more like a conversation, which is why you hear me like saying like, oh, wait, nope, I didn't mean that. Like, actually, wait, I said the wrong word there. And I don't edit that stuff out because I want it to just feel like a natural, you know, like almost like giving a presentation at Comic-Con or something. My process is, you know, so I don't really write scripts as much as I know what I want to talk about. So, and I'm gonna have to run in a few minutes because I got to go pick up my daughter at school.
Yeah.
I can definitely pick this one up. No, I get lost in this stuff too. I love talking toys. But basically, you know, if I'm making a video, like today, I'm working actually on a video about The Matrix, the movie.
Oh yeah, new movie.
But it won't be out on my channel until mid-January because I work about a month ahead.
Okay.
So essentially, I kind of know what I want to talk about, and so I'll start pulling images off the internet or taking pictures of my stuff, or, you know, things that I have that I need images of, and I'll just kind of start dropping them in, like in the order that I would want to present it, and then I go back and basically, with the images all lined up, I sort of in my head talk through the video. And while I'm doing that, I drop in the transitions and stretch and basically stretch
how long it needs to be. Okay.
Right.
So it's kind of like a Pictionary guiding you through, or I don't know what you call it. Like the pictures are guiding you through the conversation as like cue cards. Yeah.
And that's a very good part. Yeah. They're like, and so it's like, that's kind of like my rehearsal is running through it that way. And then, I mean, I keep my videos to about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And then I basically go back and I just sort of record what I just thought of in my head. Again, using the images as my cue cards. Sometimes it comes out a lot better than it did the first time in my head. Sometimes it comes out worse. Occasionally I do have to stop the mic. But that's usually because like my cat is meowing or my phone rings or something. I would say 98% of the time I just record once. I just hit record, I go the whole way through and hit stop.
Oh, it's completely different on how I do it. It's like I'll have like a 12-minute video. It'll take me 30 minutes to talk the audio track and do like the stuff that I project to the camera, and it's like 10 hours of editing.
Yeah, I know. So, I work backwards from what a lot of people do.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Like you know what you're talking about. It stays. It's really exciting. You say, even like if you would want to check it out, just like podcast wise, just listening to it, it's also great. So yeah, we were only going to do this for an hour, so I'm gonna end the stream right here. If you guys haven't checked out Spectre Creative's YouTube channel, definitely do it. Scott, thank you so much for being on the channel today. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see you a little bit more. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more videos each day. Is there anything last you want to plug?
I mean, really, I just want to thank you for having me. And I mean, it's honestly, I love chatting toys. It's great. I'm happy to come back anytime. Like, you know, sorry, I've got it. Yeah, I don't mean to have to cut it off after an hour. Just, you know, sometimes daughters do have to get picked up at school.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, that whole abandoning your child. They don't seem to smile on that. Plugging. I mean, Spectre Creative is basically where SpectreCreative.com is where you can find me, or the Spectre Creative YouTube channel. Yeah, anyone out there who needs help developing product, that's what I love to do. And you can easily contact me through. And yeah, subscribe to the channel, only in the sense that the more subscriptions, the more YouTube will share it with other people. My goal is just to share the information. I'm not retiring off of money from YouTube. I'm just doing this to help get information out there, and yes, to promote my business. But it's all about just sharing information. The more people that subscribe, it's the whole YouTube algorithm, and then YouTube will pass it to more people, and that's really all I'm trying to do. So there you go.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for being in the live chat, and we'll see you next time. See you later, guys. Bye.
All right. Bye.